All right, guys. So, as you can tell, I have something around my waist that looks like um, a construction man's belt, right? But it's not. It's a gun belt. Specifically, this is a range belt. And so what I'm going to do right now is show you guys the difference between a range belt and a combat belt. If you find yourself listening to this channel and you hear things that sound so just painfully dumb and obvious, you should be forewarned at this point that this is not a channel for your typical SEAL Team 6 guys. This isn't your team. This isn't where your team guys go to get their ongoing knowledge in the firearms space. Pretty much, this is for people who don't know a whole lot, who are interested in politics and have a sort of a cross interest, like they're with firearms, and I guess you could say they're conservatives, right? So lots of conservatives are either gun supporters or they're gun owners. So a lot of people also are new to the conservative movement because the left had gone so far left. I, for one, was a lifelong Democrat until 2015, and also a lifelong gun owner and shooter. But my politics were, I would say, relatively left of center. But the Democratic Party just went full unhinged, off the rails, pro-illegal immigration, and then it started getting really weird with all the transgender shit, and then the men can get pregnant and have abortions, and the AOC's like, sometimes it's better to be morally right than factually correct, and just the whole, the woke, politically correct shit. I happened to start seeing that in 2014, 15, and knew that, it was a road that it was just going to lead to nowhere fast. And with the whole James Comey investigation of Hillary Clinton and how that whole thing came out that she knew that she was sending and receiving classified documents on her home server that she had set up to avoid congressional oversight for the Clinton Foundation, because, she was Secretary of State for Obama while also running the Clinton Foundation. So there was a concern that she could, which she did, use that foundation to basically take bribes from foreign countries and sell access to our political system. And so it was all about that time. But not everybody's like me. Not everybody was a liberal and then also a gun owner at the same time. I grew up in a family, a dad and grandpa who were Irish from the Southwest, like Texas, and gun owners and shooters and cowboys, real cowboys. My great-great-grandfather was a Civil War general. We have a bunch of signed documents in our house by 5 different U.S. presidents, real signatures. Taft, Roosevelt, whoever, I can't think right now. So yeah, it's so I come from that sort of culture, that I would say that I guess it would be culture. So that was sort of ingrained in me as a child, but not everybody's like that. And so a lot of people are only coming into the conservative movement after being completely abandoned by the Democratic Party, and then the recent, like I would say in the 4 years, but 2 years especially, with like all the lawfare and the two different standards of justice and all these like really ridiculous like Trump indictments, Trump being charged by like state prosecutors for federal crimes, just nonsensical shit that's like totally unconstitutional. Judges giving like jury instructions that totally just basically telling the jury to make up whatever they feel like doing and just convict them. And so I guess my point of saying all this is that like if you're a real gun owner, shooter and whatnot, I'm gonna say a lot of shit that just seems like really dumb, like difference between a tactical or a range belt and a combat belt, or just really sort of simple things. But for the new person who's interested in shooting, who doesn't have any sort of experience, or this is all stuff that like will help people sort of their learning curves quicken up, you know what I mean? You could go from basically a novice with no idea about anything to pretty knowledgeable and pretty actually skillful in a short period of time. Anyway, so right now we're dealing with belts. The reason we're dealing with belts is I start a project, and then that project sort of like I become OCD on it, and then I just sort of won't stop until it's done. And so I have this Staccato. It's a P X series. X series means it's got like these cuts, the slide cuts, this DLC diamond light carbide barrel, which is like a treatment. It's I wouldn't say forget, it's a very, very durable treatment for steel. And obviously this is an unloaded gun, boom. But so I got this compensator on it, and I don't know if you're unfamiliar with what a compensator is. It's basically like a way to minimize or mitigate when you shoot your gun, it wants to rise. It's called a muzzle rise, or some people call it a kick. However, when you do these things called compensators, what you're basically doing is creating a channel for which air pressure, when the bullet exits the barrel, the air comes, and then immediately the first hole it gets to escape out the barrel, it comes straight out vertically and pushes up vertically. Because it pushes up vertically, it helps keep your gun down on target. And so instead of every shot going like, pow, and then you have to find your target again, pow, it really just sort of helps you go, and just keeps you from having to sort of re-find your target, because your gun stays right basically on target. So that's a compensator. It's one of many muzzle devices that really sort of affect how bullets either sound or how the gun responds. There's everything from like flash fighters that reduce light signature, things called brakes on rifles that really reduce the overall sort of violent kick and everything that goes along with firing of a rifle. But it's extremely noisy for the people to the right and left of you. But it makes shooting your rifle very pleasant, other than the sound. And then you have suppressors, which deal with sound and light flash mitigation. And then you have compensators. So there's a lot of different things that sort of technology has discovered over the years that people attach to their barrels. And it helps with a number of things. And depending on what your environment is, why you're shooting, if you're on the side of an Afghan mountain and you have a rifle and you're shooting, you've got night vision, you can see a guy across the valley, and he's, a quarter of a mile away on another ridge, and you start shooting at him, and you don't have a suppressor on, it's like basically sending over a, like a large light beacon, like those, those lights they used to have at like when car lots were having a sale, and they would shoot these lights up into the sky, and they would go to the heavens. They're just these big round and they have like a concave which focuses the light into a beam that just goes up forever. That's pretty much like what your rifle became. It just became like a calling card. And so that's a lot with it, especially like certain rifle rounds, that mitigating sound is rather difficult because they already fly way past the speed of sound. And so no matter what you put on the end of it, the bullet's still gonna break the sound barrier, and you're gonna get that sonic crack. Unless you have a much bigger bullet that goes much slower and it gets all of its destructive property from its weight and its mass and its size as opposed to its speed. Like for instance, this is a 5.56, and this bullet is not very big. I mean, it gets its size, or it gets its lethality from how fast it goes. It goes, approximately like 3,200 feet per second. And if you think about like 1,100 feet per second is like 700 miles an hour. So this thing is smoking. And when it hits, it's so small, but the explosion, like this thing will just do major damage to shit because of how fast it goes. Anyway, so I put a compensator on this gun because I kind of wanted to finish this build. It's this is a 2011. It's a single action. It's got a hammer back here, right? So when you cock it, slide your slide back. Right? You have these releases right here, these slide releases, these right here, right? Well, I guess it's on this side only. You push it down, and then to fire, you have to have the web of your hand in here to hit this safety, and then you have to also you can have that up, and that will stop the trigger from going forward. And as long as this is in, you can. This is a very light, crisp trigger. This is a sort of a redesigned 1911 John Browning designed. One of the most famous guns ever made is the 1911. I think in 2019, the 1911 was redesigned into a double stack gun that has it basically accepts double stack mags, which means the mags sort of like stack on top of each other left to right and just hold a bunch of them. And but it still has all these sort of this hand safety, this grip safety, this thumb safety, and then there's something to do with like the barrel. It's a different sort of barrel than like a striker fired Glock or those kind of guns. Anyway, so I wanted to get this gun done. And part of getting that done was getting a holster for it so that I could, to put it in a holster and take it to the range, take it out to the desert. And I also think I want to probably do a couple pistol competitions this year. And this is the gun I'll be using. So this is, first of all, let me show you what a battle rifle, or I'm sorry, a battle. Well, this is just another belt I have, right? Just has a holster. It's got a holster with a leg strap. It's got the fork, the QLS fork right here. You push these things in, right? Push these things in, and you pull this up. It's hard to do it when you're holding. So that's your receiver plate. This is your holster, and with your holster you have to put a fork on it. And then how it works is the fork slides into like this, and then clicks. Make sure it's on right. Yep. Okay, so this is when I go shooting and a buddy doesn't have a holster. This is the one I loan out. And I have a bunch of different holsters that have forks on it that will fit on that. Okay, now this is a battle. This is my battle belt. This is a Haley Strategic battle belt. You've got 2 pistol mags on the right in the front. You've got the holster, right? You've got a pouch. You've got a med pouch. This has got an airway. I think it's called an esophagus airway. It's a rubber sort of hose you can stick in to provide an airway if somebody's airway is compromised. Another pouch. This is a dump pouch. This is like, empty mags go in this thing. This thing also has its own leg strap. And so, but the thing is like when you want to go to the range and do some pistol work, the last thing you want is a belt that you would use if you're going to battle with somebody and you're not fighting from like a defensive home position. You're out, let's say, for 2 days, 3 days, and you have everything on you is what you have that you have to rely on to survive. So lots of stuff, right? There's an M4 pistol, rifle pouch, little stuff, an IFAK. You can see all the shit in there. Medical stuff. Just like another pouch. There's a holster with its own deal. Now these Safari Lands, these have a sort of a retainer thing that right here has this little click. Put your pistol in and it won't let go until you grab the handle, and then you pull this as you pull it out, and that goes over your optic. So this is as you can tell, that's why that people have decided that there's, you can make different belts, right? This thing is it's called a combat belt. Now this bad boy, this is what I just built. This is something you wouldn't necessarily go to combat with, but you would, this is something you would shoot competitions in. You would take to the range. You would spend a lot of time shooting your pistol in this, because it provides a great safe place to store your pistol when you're not shooting it. It covers the trigger, so it's, you're not going to get an accidental discharge. It holds a couple magazines. It holds I put on a couple of these other pouches just for the hell of it. But it's got the Cobra buckle, right? And it's a much simpler belt. Even it doesn't have the molly webbing like this one does, where you can like these sort of things are just sort of chill, basically just a nice holster. Now both of these have Velcro belts that you can see. Crazy, everything's all fucked up. thing was perfectly fitting. Anyway, it was on earlier. I don't need to put it back on. So you have Velcro on the inside, like you do on all these belts. And the purpose of that is so that you can run this as your inner belt. Right? This thing is a Velcro belt that this one's by Haley Strategic, and you can actually wear this through your belt loops as a regular belt, right? And then when it's time to get busy, you can, because, obviously you can't fit this thing with all these different pouches on through belt loops, right? You would have to take all these belt loops off. So that makes it impossible. Unless you want to spend, 2 hours every time you put your gun belt on, putting it through loops. So what you do is you have one of these, and then when you want to use this, you just throw this around, and it attaches, right, to here, right? And then you obviously also use the fastener, these Cobra buckles. And that's it. So that was my project this week. I wanted to build this, just a little range belt to shoot some pistol competitions, dedicated holster and belt for my Staccato, because, those Staccatos, this is one of those guns that, it's definitely not, the most expensive 2011 you can buy. I mean, they're, you typically see Atlases and specific 1911s in the $7,000-8,000 range, and that's without any of this shit. No red dot, no lights, no extras. But this Staccato is the it's in that top tier, but it's the one that it's a bigger company, and so they are making more, and so that can help reduce their cost, right? But as far as the tolerances and the materials used, this is as good as it gets, right? And Staccato's you start getting into the gun snobs, and they'll tell you oh, Staccato, blah blah blah, but the reality is that if you are also putting together guns like this, and you're not only buying 1911s, you can't always buy the $8,000 pistol, you know what I mean? I'd rather have the expensive rifles, the shit that you go to war with. Anyway, so that is the breakdown of that's my belt breakdown for the day. Again, you've got combat belts, you've got range belts, and yeah, that's about it. I also want to do a video on these deportations. I'm getting a serious kick out of all these ridiculous reporters that are I thought Trump said he was only going to focus on target the violent criminals. Just plain so dumb, being so intellectually dishonest. It's yes, but if the government, or if these sanctuary cities refuse to honor these ICE detainers and hold these violent criminals at the jail until ICE can come and pick them up, and instead your liberal policies allow them to walk back out onto the street because it's racist to enforce immigration laws, right? And if you force ICE to have to go risk their lives going out into the streets where these guys can then go home and become armed and dangerous instead of picking them up at the jail where they're already disarmed, they're already like dressed down in stripes, they're ready to be deported. But when you want to play politics and you want to ignore federal law and you want to make it politicize it, and you don't want to aid the federal government in doing their job, and you want to make it dangerous for Tom Homan and his people, then check this out. When they come to arrest the violent ones, they're most likely going to be with a bunch of non-violent ones, their family, their children, their mothers, their fathers. And guess what? When you force the Trump administration to go get the violent criminals out in the community instead of in the jails where you should hold them, you should honor, ICE detainment, but instead you want to make it as difficult for them as possible, as dangerous it is for them as possible. So guess what? When they do make these arrests of these violent criminals, and they just so happen to be with 20 other nonviolent, they're not gonna just ignore the law and turn away and say, well, these guys weren't violent criminals. If they just happen to be there, they're taking them. And they should take them. And 90% of the people in America want them to be taken. Americans are fucking tired of people that shouldn't even be here being prioritized, and, our tax dollars going to support these people, whether it's, in any way, shape, or form. Everybody's sick and tired of it. For these past 4 years, we were talking that like, oh, this is going to take Trump forever. First week, he's like rounded up like 4,000 of like the most violent ones. Like Trump gets in, it's always there's always because the last liberal Democrat administration did absolutely jack shit and made excuses not to do their job. Like with Obama, making it impossible for the military to fight ISIS. Oh, you can only fire on them when they fire on you, and just like putting handcuffs on our U.S. military. And then, having the audacity to say like, to conquer ISIS, this is going to be a multi-generational battle. And you get the American people thinking like, oh, we're going to be dealing with ISIS for the next 20, 30 years. Our grandchildren are going to be fighting ISIS. And then Trump comes in and he's like, you know what? Send 50,000 more dudes, fucking kick ass, take names. If you see a gun, shoot them. Don't ask questions. We're not apologizing anymore. We're not fucking around. And like within a month, ISIS was completely decimated. They were kicked out of Mosul and Raqqa. The caliphate was done. Like Trump did what they said was going to take multiple generations in like his first month in office. It just shows you like what a real businessman does. Like in the real world, you don't have 4 years to like fuck off to get like a thing done. With Kamala, it was like, we have a humanitarian crisis. So what are you going to do about it? Well, I'm going down to South America to talk to 3 presidential leaders, and we're going to talk about root causes. We're going to talk about the poverty that drives these people to leave their homeland. It's like, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, such nonsensical, like, non-action. Everything's an excuse to draw shit out so that nothing ever really gets done. And so it takes so long that the people just completely lose interest in it. It's like, it's so ridiculous how incompetent this last administration was compared to like what we're witnessing now. We are now witnessing like what happens when, this Doge, the office of whatever, responsible spending or whatever the fuck it is, they found that we were about to fund a $50 million in condoms for like Ethiopia or like some South American country. Like, it's, give me a fucking break, dude. Like, these people, we talked about it in like one of my other videos, it's like how they extend these wars. They have Biden sign an executive order that halts natural gas sales to Europe so that European countries are forced to buy their natural gas from Putin, which flushes his country full of money when they're running out of money and they can no longer fight Ukraine anymore, and that war is about to end because Russia's out of cash. And the people who profit off the war machine, they say, oh, we got to do something. Okay, get here, push this in front of Biden, say it's a study on natural gas, and Biden just signs it. And all of a sudden, Europe is like, wait, we can't buy our natural gas from America? And so they have to buy it from Russia, and all of a sudden, Putin's making $8 billion a day in natural gas sales. And now he's got all the money in the world to fight, this war for another 4 years. And it's all because you have these people, and they're doing this because in these large transactions of money from America or from the U.S. to Ukraine, there's all these opportunities along the way to skim off, 50 million here, 7 million there, 700,000 is like nothing. That's like pennies. That doesn't even hit there's not even nothing that raises no red flags. There's not even flags that are made to indicate when something that small goes missing or just disappears from the overall budget or funding. And so they see that the war, oh my God, Putin's running out of money. We got to fund him quick so we can continue just completely raping the American people out of their tax dollars. So we have to find a way to flush Putin full of cash. Anyway, so, and so, I mean, we've seen this last week with the difference between a president who cares and a president who not only didn't care, but was completely he wasn't even aware of what was going on. And now that's clear as day, and it's so funny because we got so used to him walking into walls and, looking confused and just talking to the air and turning around and just staring into a bush. And everybody, I think it just got to the point where it was we started questioning am I expecting too much? Am I expecting too much that the leader of the free world wouldn't have his head buried in a fucking oleanders in the middle of his speech? I mean, it's just ridiculous, dude. But somehow I'll tell you what, the Democratic Party is completely dust at this point. I mean, the way they were talking to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., just zero respect. They're they know they can't win. They have nothing. They had no wins in 4 years. They have nothing they can say they did positive except to attack Trump. They destroyed the economy. They failed the American people during crises and natural disasters and fires and floods, and they were never there. It would take Pete Buttigieg 3 months to get to, East Palestine, Ohio, or they just were such failures they didn't even pretend to care. You have these fucking morons Sam, whatever his name was, bald dude with a red dress, and he would go to the airport and steal women's clothes, wear bright red, lipstick. These trans freaks everywhere. That Rachel Levine, whatever she was, the assistant surgeon general, looked like just the ugliest woman you'd ever seen. And then you're like, oh, it's because it's like a man, he's like a portly man that would be a total dork if he was a dude. And so now he's like a dude with like frizzy hair and lipstick. Of course he's ugly. I mean, these people are so disgusting. Oh, and then, jeez, Selena Gomez. My people, I don't even know what to do. It's like, your fucking people are the Americans who've been dying 100,000 plus a year from fentanyl. I never saw a single video of you crying, sobbing because your people are being rounded up and don't even know what to do. Shut the fuck up. If those are your people, jump on the fucking plane and kick rocks, bitch. You know what I mean? It's so funny, too. Listen to these. Now I'm starting to get heated up. Fuck all these libs. You listen to the, one... It's like so obvious what's going on is like absolutely working and is the right thing to do. I mean, violent criminals, there's no debate. They gotta go, right? And so as they're making these people vanish and throwing these people on planes, these live like reporters are like, well, what do you have to say to Tom Homan? What do you have to say about the reports that these migrants are being unfairly treated in the transportation process? He's like, what do you mean? Be specific. He goes, oh, there's no water on the planes. I'm sitting there, I'm like, these motherfuckers, like, they're lucky they're not fucking walking. Like, right back the fucking way they came through the desert. You know what I mean? Like, the fucking nerve of this fucking reporter. Oh, there's not enough water. It's like, these fucking people, like they're complaining because they don't have a fucking like a drink cart on these planes. Like guaranteed, they're given a bottle of water. They're not fucking gonna kill people on this like 3-hour flight. Give me a break. But like they have to find something, right? They have to find something. It's inhumane. It's like so stupid. Absolutely so ridiculous. And that's all they can do is cry. And then, Selena Gomez, like, doesn't realize that as she's saying, like, my people, I don't even know what to do. It's like, there were none of these tears for Lake and Riley. Like, none of these tears for the 300,000 missing children that get lost into sex slavery because of these policies that look the other way when there's, like, illegal migrants that come in with children and they there's no documentation as to if these kids are theirs or not. A lot of these kids are just like sent over with, they're just taken by these cartels so that the adults won't get deported. It's so pathetic, man. It's so pathetic. And so she's like, Selena Gomez is, crying. Has not a single bit of encouragement for, did you hear about the 75,000 kids they just found? No, she's crying because she saw a video of like these gangbangers in Chicago being rounded up. Now, one of these videos, right, it was like, one of these videos was Dr. Phil and Tom Homan, and they find this dude, and he's got like past criminal charges. He's been deported before, and they ask him his charge, and he's like, I need to speak to my lawyer. And so Tom Homan comes over, he's like, yeah, he's child sex, sexual abuse of a minor or whatever. And so that's what Dr. Phil starts questioning him on it. Now, in this video, there's also a deportation order on this 44-year-old grandfather, who they rounded up. The dude has a DUI, comes over to this country, has anchor babies, he's been here for 25 fucking years. And it's not just good enough to just come over and, fucking mind your P's and Q's. he comes over and starts drinking and driving and risking people's lives. You know what I mean? Like, I don't give a fuck. Period. I don't give a shit. Right? Like, you're free to go back with him. Go home. Kick rocks, like, bitch. You know what I mean? Sit here and use all this emotional blackmail on everybody. Oh, my 44-year-old father. It's like, dude, you're like 23. Your father's 44, and and his grandchildren. You're 23 and you've got like 6 kids. So they come out like, whatever. I'm not going to judge, the fact that she was like 13 having children. But far from these doctors and lawyers that Democrats keep telling us about, right? These are the dreamers. They're going to, solve or cure cancer. But nevertheless, it's this Selena boy. I mean, I just sat there and I'm just like, to have all the shit going on that was going on, and for her not to never have any empathy or show any remorse or sadness for any of it until it's a video of violent migrants, like child sex, like pedophiles, straight up. And this is who this bitch is fucking crying over, like ugly crying too, and just so fake. Oh, like, oh, I'm really sad and I'm sobbing over these migrants. Let me turn my camera on and record this, so that I can just beg them and tell them I don't know what to do. It's like, give me a break. Here, I know what you can do. How about you sell your fucking mansions and, sponsor some of them, right? Do something. I mean, this is the typical liberal. I mean, the bitch is worth $1 billion or whatever. And you never heard of her on this immigration issue until it's time to kick out the violent fucking pedophiles. And now all of a sudden, like, she was never the one. You never heard about, like, oh, Selena Gomez gave another, $500,000 to the, immigration fund to help, like, women escaping war. You know what I mean? So I couldn't give 2 fucks about her, and as far as I'm concerned, she could bounce, get the fuck out, and take Ilhan Omar with you too, because that bitch has got to go. I mean, this dirty rat, like, crawled up on our shores, like, 30 years ago from Somalia, escaping a fucking civil war in Somalia. It's like the war ended, 20 years ago? Beat it, bitch. You know what I mean? She's the one that's always, like, complaining about, like, America, and it's so systemically racist, and, like, nobody fucking invited you here. Like, you came here begging for help. Your skinny little rat ass crawled out of the ocean, begging for help. We gave you compassion. We gave you asylum. 20 years later, you're walking around and you just think you're the hottest shit. And, like, you're marrying your brother so that he can defraud our immigration system. You're saying that Al-Qaeda is your people, and 9/11 was just a thing. Fuck you. I hope they look into her too and wind up deporting her. She needs to be deported. Seriously. Marrying your brother, your blood brother, so you can avoid immigration laws, and so he can... These people, man. Fuck them all. Alright, guys. That's a 44-minute video. This is I would say it's sort of political, sort of like a gear review. Regardless, what we will be doing very soon, I promise you, is we will be hitting the range, and once we do that, those will be a majority of the videos that we make, because that's really what I want to do the most. I really like to do like a couple political videos a week, and really put time and thought into them. you know, so I can, not just like the freestyle shit that comes to my head, and I just start sort of like vomiting all the stuff that like I've sort of latched on throughout the week that pisses me off, but like have some really good, bring up some really good points, or not so good points, and you know, do a couple political videos a week, but do a bunch of shooting videos a week. A lot of gear and weapon reviews. Yeah, that's about it. So I hope you guys like this. If there's any questions about anything you've seen, there's not a whole lot to it, guys. Belts, you know, belts are belts. They are a thing that wraps around the stuff that covers your junk from the waist down, and to this thing that holds the junk you can attach stuff to it, and that's what a belt is. So it's not exactly rocket science, and that's all there is to it, guys. I was thinking about doing another video, but I made this one long enough. So, all right, guys, have a good one. Take care.